Hello, Montreal, and welcome to Rising Stars, where we showcase local Montreal talent on the rise. Today, I am very excited to be joined by someone I consider a friend in the Montreal acting community, the very talented Mr. Matthew Crandall. Matthew, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited.
I'm so happy to be here, man. It's
beautiful. One thing that has stood out to me because we've worked together on a few projects is your passion for the art of acting, and I see it when we speak, I see it on your social media. I'd love to know how that passion was first ignited. Where did that come from?
It's a while back now, but it all started honestly from a high school trip. So I went to Stratford, Ontario, which is all Shakespeare related, all the arts, and I didn't know what exactly that was. But then we took a trip and we went to all the costume department, all the prop department, and that's when it first ignited because you see what those characters may be, right? And I think that just sparked something. From then on, drama became my life, and not in the negative way, of course, but in the way of, I just dove directly into it. Next thing I know, I'm at John Abbott College studying professional theater for 3 years. And then from then on, it just became my life, right? Sure. So you say social media and whatnot. It's true. This is my life. And I enjoy every minute of it. It's phenomenal. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. You alluded to the fact that you attended John Abbott College for the theater program, which is very well known in Montreal. Take us through that maybe first month on that John Abbott journey.
To be honest, it was terrifying, right? Like you're walking into somewhere that's like I'm from deep in like Montreal, right? I'm traveling pretty far to go and follow my passion. And a lot of people were like, well, you're traveling an hour and a half to come and do this thing, right? So if you weren't passionate about it, you wouldn't do it, right? And I think that's just how I kind of navigated this weird world of love what you do what you love, right? And when it came to that first month, honestly, I was thinking like, am I cut out for this, right? The schedule, it's 8 o'clock till 10 at night. It's crazy, right? But I wouldn't have changed it, right? Because it made me the actor I am today, and I feel like I needed to fall to pick myself back up. Like that classic Batman quote of, you need to fall to learn to get back up. Well, I needed to do that in the first month, and honestly, the first year. So, yeah.
That first year can always be challenging. Was there something, be it a teacher or a fellow colleague, that helped you get through it? Maybe they said something, maybe it was something they did.
So, at Abbott, we tend to have multiple teachers, right? We have multiple facets. So we have voice, we have movement, we have all these things. But I think, honestly, it's seeing other people act, right? You can look and you can see people just being themselves, and then you play off of that in other facets and other forms, right? But then when teachers come up to you and tell you, like, maybe fix this, maybe fix that, and then you don't notice it until you actually watch yourself do it, or you see, oh, they did that too, right? You kind of learn on the fly. And I think that, teachers that I had, like Andy Cook and these people, just to shout out a couple, Zachary Frazier and these guys, they forced me out of a comfort zone that I didn't know I had, right? Like I thought that I just moved around normally. But then, you put on masks and you put on these things and you realize, wow, I move like that in front of that huge studio mirror, and you're like, whoa, that's not me, that can't be me. But, it's kind of look and see what happened.
Because the John Abbott program is 3 years, every year I'm sure it's a wave, you learn different things. Take me through what you learned. What was your biggest lesson the first year, then the second year, and then to cap it all off, the third year, what you ended on? So
first year, I would honestly say kind of just trusting myself. You know what I mean? Like the journey from the beginning of first year to the end of the first year was kind of shedding new skin, right? It was kind of trying this thing, and if it works, great. If not, I don't know what's next, but we'll see where it ends, right?
Yeah.
Second year ended up being something that is like, yeah, I'm comfortable in this area now, I think, right? But it gets tougher because now you're doing bigger plays, now you're doing monologues that are very long, right? And you're thinking, okay, maybe memorization may be a thing to keep in your back of your pocket, your mind, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me because then in third year, you kind of just become a new human being. Like it's just, you learn the business aspect of it. You learn how this whole acting thing really works outside of John Abbott. And for me, it was something that you don't really notice until you jump out of the building and you're like, no, I'm ready for this, right? You're at cabaret and you're doing your whole thing and you realize you're like, wow, I'm a new human being than I was in first year. And it's something that I think many people, if they're going and studying the arts, allow yourself to feel those 3 steps. It's gonna be terrible at the beginning. You're gonna be scared.
Yeah.
But being scared only means you care about something.
Exactly.
Right? So that's my lesson for them, just stick into it.
Of course.
You'll get there. So, yeah.
100%. And going off of that, this question just popped into my head. But if John Abbott were to call in the future and say, Matthew, we want you to teach a course, Intro to Acting, what is one thing you would want to teach your students as a fellow actor, having been there?
So, I mean, that's a loaded question. I would love to go back to Abbott and teach.
Yeah.
I think teaching is something any actor should do, like if you've been in it for a while, is, just the point of, trust in yourself, right? Have empathy for any character you have, because they're still human beings, or they're still an animal or something like that generally feel, right?
Yeah.
Our business is something about like teaching people how to feel what other people are feeling. And I think, especially nowadays, many people should have that mindset of to help one another, not to hurt one another, not to any of that, right? Acting is meant to heal and to show what normal life is on a camera, on the stage, wherever it may be, right? So I feel like what I want my students to potentially think of, if I were to go back to Abbott, would be to, find what makes them unique, the actor, and also what makes this character unique. Because every character you do is unique, right? So think about it that way, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful answer. And because the word business was brought up a couple times, you recently signed with an agency, which I want to congratulate you on.
Thank you.
Especially in Montreal, kind of a goal actors have is to get signed to an agency. Tell me about the process of getting that, of attaining that goal, of getting signed, because it could be a hustle for a while.
It is. And I remember at the beginning, I signed with an agent right out of school. And sometimes you tend to just go with whatever comes up, and you're like, oh, they're talking to me, great. But what ends up happening is you kind of want that hustle, because then you get the better agent, the more things coming in, right?
Yeah.
And also the fact is, when you're out of school, right, you just you let anyone kind of take control of your career.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good, sometimes not so good, right? But the hustle is generally just going out and talking to people, right? Interacting with people. They say that just talking to somebody can get you that next job. It's true, right? And just actually having friends in the business, right?
Yeah.
Generally, you talk to them, and then next thing you know, there's an agent right around the corner.
Yeah.
And there's so many agencies in Montreal that you can generally go back and forth, right? You can see what they do, who they have on their rosters, right? And I was fortunate enough to know people that knew people, and it's all networking, right?
Yeah.
So I go to a workshop, next thing I know, my agent's there and watching me, and I would love to sign you. Okay, well, I would love to have you on my team, so thank you, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, it's just honestly going out, talking to people, and just being a good person on set, right?
Exactly.
Just talking to people and generally eventually going to that next step of finding who's going to work with you.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point because that is definitely overlooked in the business. A lot of actors in their beginnings, especially me, it was eat my face off, audition for everything, where working hard is part of the process, but you could also work smarter. And like you said, be a good person, make connections, and be of value. I think that's the most important part, is be of value to the producers, the directors, to everybody. And that's awesome. Heading into that, what are some things you took from your training that you feel are your biggest tools in your toolbox as an actor?
Well, I never knew, but I have a very expressive face, apparently.
You do.
I never knew this. I thought I was a shy kid. And usually most theater kids tend to be that shy kid, then opens up, right? But then mask work, I found that by me moving around, improv work, I generally love to go back to improv whenever I possibly can, because it gets you out of your mind. You don't have time to think, you just do.
Yeah.
And I think many people should always have that in their toolbox, and always be going to those workshops that are improv, that are scene works and writing and whatnot, because reality is you don't know what might happen on set, you don't know what might happen on stage. There could be something that goes wrong. What are you doing to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you go on set and then you come back and there's a new person there, right?
Yeah.
The guy got cut between lunch and your next scene,
Yeah.
right? And it's learning how that person reacts. So also just, I would honestly say just like scene work, right?
Yeah.
Going back and forth with new people, right? And audition for everything. Self-tape work, honestly, I think is the most challenging because it's you and a reader, right? And I think many people should also take workshops and stuff like that for self-tapes, because you have to improv with nobody there, and it's a lot more difficult than people tend to think.
It is. And we were talking about this off camera, the importance of workshops. Which ones would you advise for actors who are just getting into it, who maybe don't know where to go? What are some great workshops to kind of get them out of their comfort zone?
The most recent one that I did was a motion capture workshop that I encourage people to do.
Wow.
It's very challenging, but it's something that I think will open up every horizon for you. But what I would say is improv work, scene work. Like I was saying, it's improv work is generally the one I would say for everyone to go and do, especially right outside your college life there. Improv, I did one with Johnny Cortez, and he is phenomenal. He does a weekend workshop that kind of allows you to dive not just in the scene work, but also allows you to do animal work and to do voice work and movement all in a very jam-packed weekend. But it's also very inspirational. And I feel like whatever workshop you're going to do, go 100% into it, 150% into it, and you know, kind of just delve into whatever that may be, right? So the improv work, generally, I would think, and if you guys can, Johnny Cortez, phenomenal actor.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. And having been trained for theater, you also work on films, because we've worked together on films. They say in theater that bigger is better. When you're on camera, you want to be a bit tighter and smaller. What was that transition like? What were some practices you used to kind of tone down the theater aspect?
I'm going to be honest. What ends up happening is you get on set, right? And your first time going from theater to film, you're yelling.
Yeah.
You're yelling, and you're not even noticing it, right?
Because they want you to project.
Exactly, right? And they're like, okay, you just like blew the microphone. But you go on set, and then we had the opportunity of doing something with masks, right? We had to do all sorts of things, like physically the COVID mask, right? And you don't realize how much you're talking over the mask, or sometimes you don't even realize that you're peaking audio, right? But also playing bigger on set you only really have like a square to really work with, right?
Yeah.
But on theater, you need to be bigger because that person in the last row needs to see you and understand you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely a transition. What I suggest for people to do is do self-tapes and listen to them back, right? Because self-tapes you can fumble on, but eventually when you're on set, you only have a certain amount of time for you to fail at talking
Yeah.
lower, and also to allow you to not be so big, right? You see where your issues may be. Not that they're issues, but things to tweak,
Yeah.
before hopping on set. So.
For sure. And bringing that up, do you have any audition tips and tricks? Because a lot of actors, they have the feeling of, oh, I'm bad at auditions, but if I get cast for the role, I'm amazing. It's just that audition that frightens me. Do you have any tips and tricks?
Honestly, I think usually use your gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
If it seems that it's you're just saying words, no one wants to just hear you say words sometimes, right?
Yes.
And also, if it tends to be something that you're like, my face is doing something weird here, this is doing something, redo a take.
Yeah.
Take the time, right? I know many people are like, oh, we only have a certain deadline. You have the deadline for a reason, yes, but you also have enough time to fix it beforehand,
Of course.
before sending it in. And what I would honestly say is good lighting. If I can see you, I can see you act, right?
Yeah.
If the self-tape also acquires you to, be moving around and being comfortable, dress the part. I don't know how many people I've seen to go into an audition and just have a shirt and pants, and it's like a business role, and it's a tie usually and whatnot. Yes, I get comfortability is key, but also when you're on set, you're going to be wearing that type of stuff. I always learned that from theater, right?
Yeah.
You need to dress the part so that you play the part. And I think many people need to just believe that, fully committing into it,
Yeah.
they're going to see that, and that should be enough to get you the audition and to hopefully get you the part.
I think that's an amazing point, because I had found myself in that trap as well at the beginning of maybe going to rehearsals not dressed as my character and not having the best performance in rehearsals and wondering, well, why? Why aren't I hitting those notes, for lack of a better word? And it was because of that, exactly what you said, really fully committing to your character. And speaking of characters, what are some characters you're working on now? Maybe things you're getting cast in? Are you following a certain casting, maybe getting typecast?
Out of high school and college, I ended up getting casted as like the bigger guy, the bully, and then they noticed that I have light blue eyes, and they're like, "You're a nice human being." And I'm like, "Great, thank you, I appreciate that." But now I've been doing stuff with Read Framed. I've been doing stuff around stunt work and stuff like that.
Very nice.
So there's always something in the background for me, and also workshops. I'm going back to Johnny's thing because I need to. I want to continue the work because when you're not working and acting, you can lose it. It's a possibility, right?
Exactly.
So always workshopping. And then, there's stuff that's going to be doing this summer, so that's great. And I'm going to actually be playing Cop, which they were telling me a while back that would be my typecasting. And I'm like, okay, well, it finally happened.
There we go.
Several years after, but it did happen. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is it a TV show?
It's going to be a film in the end of August.
Very nice, very nice. We're going to look out for that with great excitement.
Looking forward to it.
A bit of a deeper question now, because it popped into my head. I know you fairly well. I wanted to ask you this. Matthew Crandall as an actor, I would want to be most remembered for?
It's a loaded question. Loving what I do. Because, we are on this planet for a very small, short period of time. And for me, I even have a tattoo that says, love what you do what you love. It has the theater masks in between. And I think that's something that many people tend to lose, right? okay, it might be, a bit wishy-washy, but if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you generally appreciate every little detail that comes into your life and every little nick and cranny that might be, pushing you any which way, then you are just adaptable.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's something I want people to remember of me as an actor of, generally just appreciating the little things.
For sure.
Like, I love going on set because I meet amazing people
Yeah.
and very talented people. And I feel like that's something that I can always do and appreciate because you make these little families along the way, right? And one of my theater teachers actually said that, you go and you make these little families and then you come back later and you expand on that new horizon. And I feel like, loving what you do is always number one for me.
100%. And that's a beautiful answer. Bouncing off of that, Matthew Crandall as an actor, what's on the horizon? We spoke about you have projects coming up, a film coming out at the end of August. In a year, 3 years, 5 years, what's the plan for your career? Where do you see yourself?
So I love the grind. I love just continuing and seeing what happens, right? But teaching has always been something I do love to do. I love directing, I love writing. And I write from time to time.
You do. I appeared in one of your,
exactly.
yeah.
And I love diving into that other aspect.
Yeah.
But also what ends up happening is, with teaching, it gives me a new facet, a new way into, learning myself as an actor.
Yeah.
And you never know. I feel like it allows me to, cultivate that passion in somebody else. And I feel like I would love to continue doing that.
For sure. I think I had brought up teaching before just on a whim. I didn't even know you wanted to teach, so it's just funny. If you had to teach a course, maybe not intro to acting, but maybe something you felt was fundamental, whether it be improv or breath work, what would that be?
Honestly, it was something that I struggled with a bit, was voice.
Voice.
Voice work is something that many people take for granted, I think. Breathing and doing the things to allow yourself to talk in the most pristine way.
Yeah.
But when you do, different types of accents and things like this, but also how to sustain that without hurting your voice, right? Especially in theater, right? You go into these higher places that you didn't think you had, and then you're hurting the day after, and you're wondering why. It's because you didn't do the techniques, and then you wonder why there's a voice class. That's why. So potentially voice. Yeah. Voice.
That's awesome. Speaking about accents, one of the questions I had: are there any accents for roles you would want to book? Maybe an accent that's far out there.
So I've done English accents before for a while.
Okay.
In theater, and I think they might know that I have an English background, so they're like, "Oh, you know how to do it. You're fine."
Yeah.
But I did learn it through John Abbott. I did hear stuff for Australian, and I was kind of like, "That's a whole new venue," but I would love to try it. I think my thing is, if it works and it's good for the character, I will try my damnedest to make sure that you get what you wanted, right?
Exactly.
And I don't know, New Zealand too, I've heard, which is a bit off of Australian. But yeah, English accents I've always been doing, so
awesome.
I'd love to do it again.
Awesome. And are there any artistic influences in terms of actors that you like to go off of when you're researching a character?
When researching a character, no, because I find that when you watch somebody to like get inspiration, you tend to be like, oh, they did that, but then you're like, how do I do that now? Right? And also you kind of like pick up their things, and sometimes that's not the best thing to do. But I've always looked up to, Brad Pitt, Leonardo, the classics. But also, I've watched a lot of Denzel recently, and most recently Michael B. Jordan as well.
Yeah.
You know, in Creed and the bigger projects, you tend to be like, okay, well, it's blockbuster. I would imagine it's good acting.
Yeah.
But then the nuance work is where I really like to dive in.
Yeah.
To, you know, and like Leo, he's been doing it for how many years now?
Yeah.
So like you see his journey, and I aspire to that. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of these actors follow, I'm not going to say they do method acting, but they have a certain way they go about their roles. Do you have a certain method or way that you approach your characters when the camera comes on, when it comes off?
So most of the time it's a lot of, you know, diving into what they may think, how they feel. You can't play feelings, you can only play the character, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like what ends up happening is once the camera goes off, that's when Matthew dives deep into it, because and then once the camera hits, it needs to be there, right?
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is my method tends to start with reading the lines, learning the lines, then adding in all the extra.
Yeah.
Because reality is you need to say those lines to the best of your ability. That needs to be always in the back of your head.
Yeah.
And then everything else you dress around it, right? But before that, it's all, you know, why does he say this? Why does he say that? And learning the lines.
Yeah.
And then from there, shadowing it all around into, you know, what the character is supposed to be.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. As a last question, I love to ask all the actors and actresses that come on the show this, because we are in Montreal. It's a beautiful artistic community, but it is lacking. What is one thing you would like to see more of in the Montreal acting community as a fellow actor?
So it's a beautiful city for theater. There's not much film. There is, but when in regards to short films, student films, this stuff is all here.
Yeah.
But not many outside sources are coming to Montreal anymore.
Yeah.
Also, just the diversity of, you know, the English and French.
Yeah.
I think we all need to be together.
Yeah.
It allows us to, you know, be cohesive in one place.
Yeah.
And we are a small theater community.
Yeah.
You know, these musicals, these things, they need more funding. They need more things to happen. Go to your, you know, Kickstarters and stuff like this and help them, because, you know, people may need to go and see a musical or to go see these big things, and they're not getting funding to do so. So I think just generally also people around the community, just spreading word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, diverse place, Montreal, that
It is.
everyone can hopefully find their local theater and go and enjoy it, or catch every film and show and anything that comes from Montreal.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. I'm just curious, has there been a piece of Montreal art that you've come across that you would like to shout out? Maybe it'd be an actor or a film or something from the city that we should be more aware of.
Well, I mean, right now they're doing a bunch of musicals, like I was saying, but one, there's in Kanawaki, which you're not realizing because it tends to be looked aside because, you know, they're farther away and whatnot. But go see Curtains. It's happening, I believe, at the end of July.
Okay.
Go and check it out. It's outside the way, but they always need like the support and whatnot out there. Everyone needs support in Montreal, so go and check that out.
Beautiful, beautiful. Just to wrap up, you got projects on the horizon. Anything you would like to give a last shout out to that we should be really looking forward to in the future?
I also have this this thing coming up called Cop Guys coming out this summer.
Oh.
Which I play like a IT type of guy, but I'm a very nerdy character. So if you want to see me be over the top and that theater-esque, but also a bit nerdy and grumpy and whatnot, go check that out. Should be roughly around August time. It should be coming out.
Beautiful. We're gonna be looking out for that.
Yeah.
Matthew, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing where your future takes you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.